The stars went quiet before the screams began. No one knew why or how, but one by one across the vast expanse of the Milky Way, entire civilizations simply stopped. The great empires of the Ilari, the crystal domes of the Vorkon, even the whispering clouds of the Etherians, all fell silent within a single galactic year. Communication relays went unanswered. Trade routes drifted empty. And in the center of the void, the small blue planet called Earth listened, terrified. At first, humans thought it was a cosmic malfunction, a solar flare perhaps, or a network crash on a scale never seen. But then the refugee ships began to arrive, burned, broken, desperate. They told stories of a plague that consumed everything, not through blood or breath, but through thought itself. Minds infected, memories twisted. Entire species turned into stillness. No cure, no warning, no survivors. The disease had a name given by the few who lived long enough to whisper it. The Veil. And yet, Earth stood untouched. The first to notice was Dr. Elara Miles, a virologist in the United Terran Science Corps. She sat in her small lab overlooking the ruins of Geneva, studying transmission patterns that made no sense. The plague moved through neural frequencies, a psychic virus that could leap between minds like wildfire. But every test showed the same impossible result. Human brains resisted it completely. She stared at the monitor's results for hours, her fingers trembling. "Why us?" she whispered to herself. "Why are we immune?" Commander Rian Holt entered the room, his uniform scorched from another night of orbital debris control. He'd lost half his squad last week to a collapsing station near Mars. He looked at Elara with the tired eyes of a man who'd seen too much and still refused to break. "Any progress?" he asked quietly. Elara turned, her voice shaking. "The Veil shouldn't spare anyone, Rian. It's like it avoids us, as if it knows." "Knows?" Rian frowned. "You think it's intelligent?" "I think it's afraid," she said. Outside, the night sky flickered faintly, echoes of long-dead transmissions bouncing aimlessly through space. The galaxy's once thriving chorus had become a haunting hum, like the memory of a symphony cut short. Humanity watched, grieved, and waited for their turn to fall, but it never came. Within months, every alien contact ceased. The last message received was from the Arvel Confederacy, a peaceful alliance that had mentored humanity in faster-than-light travel. Their ambassador, Leoran, had sent a single trembling broadcast before vanishing into static. "The Veil reaches thought. It unravels the soul. We cannot fight what we cannot forget. Hold your minds, humans. Hold, and then nothing." Earth's skies remained empty ever since. Rian and Elara stood at the edge of the great observatory dome, looking at the Milky Way. So quiet now, it almost seemed mournful. The weight of survival pressed down on them both. It wasn't victory, it was loneliness. "Do you think they're gone?" Rian asked, his voice low. Elara nodded slowly. "Every signal we've traced ends in silence. It's like the whole galaxy has fallen asleep." Rian looked up at the stars, jaw tightening. "Then we wake them." Elara turned toward him, startled. "What?" "We're humans," he said firmly. "We've survived plagues, wars, and our own mistakes. If there's a way to stop this and to bring them back, we'll find it. That's what we do." His certainty was fragile, but it was real. Elara felt something stir within her, that same stubborn spark that had defined her species for millennia. Maybe that's what the Veil couldn't touch. Not biology, not genetics, but the will to live. The fire that refused to surrender even when the stars went dark. She smiled faintly. "Then we start tomorrow." He nodded, watching the dawn edge across the horizon. As the first light of a new day reached across the battered Earth, humanity's mission began. A journey not to conquer, but to remember. Because somewhere, hidden in the ruins of fallen worlds, lay the secret to why the galaxy had perished, and why the humans had not. And as the sun rose, painting the silent sky gold, one truth lingered in the air, whispered by the wind, carried through the empty frequencies. The galaxy had ended. But humanity had only just begun. The silence of the galaxy was not just empty, it was heavy. Every morning, Commander Rian Holt stood at the observation deck staring past the distant, cold stars. And every morning, Dr. Elara Miles reminded him that they were not alone. Not completely. Humanity remained small and fragile, yet defiant in the face of oblivion. It had been 6 months since the last alien transmission. 6 months of listening, scanning, and waiting. And then, finally, a faint signal appeared, buried deep in the cosmic static. A whisper of life from beyond the solar system. Rian. Come look at this, Elara said, pointing at her console. The display flickered with a pulsing pattern, irregular but deliberate. It was not a message in any language known to human science. Not words, not numbers, not symbols, but a rhythm. A heartbeat, Rian leaned in, squinting. You're sure it's not interference? I've triple-checked, Elara replied. It's intentional. Some intelligence is still out there, and they're calling, or at least they're trying. The news spread through Earth's surviving population like wildfire. Scientists, engineers, pilots, and dreamers all crowded into the newly rebuilt command centers to hear it, to see proof that they were no longer alone in a silent universe. Rian felt a mix of awe and dread. It could be friendly, or it could be the Veil, waiting for us to answer. Elara shook her head. No, the Veil doesn't signal. It consumes this wants to be heard. Days turned into nights as humanity scrambled to interpret the signal. The message contained no words, yet somehow patterns began to emerge. Rhythms of numbers, pulses of color translated into music. The strange transmission evoked memory and emotion in ways human minds could barely describe. It was sorrow, longing, and hope all at once. One evening, as the artificial sun of Earth's orbital station cast pale gold over the lab, Elara whispered, It's like they survived somehow, just like us. Rian stood behind her, silent, watching the pulsing light on the screen. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to hope. But hope was a fragile thing, easy to hold, easy to lose. They decided to respond. Humanity had survived the Veil not merely by chance, but by will. If they had the courage to reach out, perhaps they could touch what remained of the galaxy. Elara and Rian devised a simple code, using patterns of sound and light. Every night they transmitted pulses back into the void, carefully mimicking the rhythm of the mysterious signal. And every night the signal answered, more complex, more insistent. Then came the moment they realized something impossible. The pulse carried emotion. Each response reflected their own fears, their own longing. It was as though the unknown life beyond had learned to mirror human feeling. One morning, Rian entered the lab to find Elara staring at the console with wide, unblinking eyes. Rian, look at this. On the screen, a pattern unfolded, a spiral of light that seemed almost alive. It moved, shifted, and then paused as if waiting. And then, unmistakably, the spiral pulsed in a sequence that matched a human heartbeat. Rian felt his chest tighten. It's responding to us. Elara nodded. Yes, not just the code. Our presence. Our humanity. It was terrifying and beautiful. They were no longer alone in the void. Somewhere, perhaps at the edge of a destroyed star system, other survivors existed. They were not human, not yet extinct, and yet in some impossible way they were reaching out, desperate to connect. Rian rubbed his face. If they can survive, maybe we can find them, maybe. Together we can stop the Veil. Elara's fingers hovered over the console, hesitating. Or maybe we're stepping into something far bigger than we imagined. We've survived by chance so far. But curiosity can be deadly. Rian smiled faintly, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. We're human. We survive. We explore. That's who we are. And no plague, no cosmic silence, can take that away from us. As they prepared the first unmanned probe to follow the pulses, the station trembled slightly. Not from the Veil, not yet, but from the sheer energy of possibility. For the first time since the galaxy fell, Earth felt less like a tomb and more like a beacon. Humanity was not just surviving, they were searching. And somewhere among the echoes of destroyed worlds, other beings waited, listening. The galaxy was silent no longer. The probe moved through the void like a lone heartbeat in a graveyard of stars. Commander Rian Holt and Dr. Elara Miles watched its progress from the command center on Earth's orbital station. Every signal it sent back was a lifeline, a thread connecting them to the remnants of a galaxy that had almost vanished. And then, after months of silence, the probe transmitted something they had not expected. A structure, not natural. Not a fragment of a dead world, but a city, shimmering faintly in the darkness, built with geometry so alien it made human minds ache to comprehend. Towers curved in impossible spirals, and lights pulsed like the rhythm of a living being. The probe's sensors detected movement. Life. Elara leaned over the console, holding her breath. It's still inhabited somehow. Ryan's jaw tightened. We need to know if it's safe, and if the Veil is here. They initiated the first attempt at contact. Using light pulses and harmonic sequences, the probe broadcasted human greetings, simple, deliberate, full of intention. For hours nothing happened. Then a response. Patterns of light, slow and deliberate, almost shy. They're listening, Elara whispered. They're alive but cautious. The two spent days interpreting the signals. Slowly, impossibly, a picture emerged. The inhabitants called themselves the Ilari. Once a proud civilization spanning hundreds of systems, they had been reduced to one city after the Veil swept through their worlds. Their species had survived, but barely. They had lived in silence, waiting, terrified of what might reach them next. Rian rubbed his eyes. They're like us, scarred but still fighting. Elara's fingers trembled over the console. We have to be careful. One wrong signal, one misstep, and we could bring the Veil to them. Or worse. The Ilari's messages grew more complex. They expressed fear, grief, and hope. They shared memories of lost worlds and patterns of light and vibration. Ryan realized something profound. This was not just communication, it was connection. For the first time in months, humanity felt less like survivors and more like witnesses to a galaxy that might heal. And yet the Veil shadow hung over every interaction. Every pulse, every light sequence could be a trap, a test, or a warning. Then came the first emotional breakthrough. One night the probe transmitted an image, an Ilari child, its luminous eyes wide with fear, reaching out. And the response from the station was instinctive, a lullaby, hummed over the harmonic transmitter, a simple human tune of comfort. The Ilari answered. In turn, with a gesture of light, a spiral unfolding, growing brighter. For the first time they shared emotion, not just information. A bridge had been built. Rian felt a strange lump in his throat. We're helping them heal, he said quietly. Not with weapons, not with dominance, but with ourselves. Elara nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. We're the first humans they've seen since the galaxy died. We're the first proof that survival is possible. But the triumph was fragile. Reports from distant stations showed new anomalies in space-time near old Arvel systems. Tiny flashes of the Veil's signature. It had not disappeared, it had only paused. Humanity had bought time, but time was not endless. Rian clenched his fists. Then we move faster. We learn more. We survive for them and for ourselves. Elara leaned close to the console, whispering to the probe. We're coming. Hold on. And in the silent glow of distant stars, a new chapter began. Humanity was no longer merely earthbound. They were explorers, mediators, and witnesses to the last echoes of the galaxy. The Ilari, once isolated and broken, now had hope. And humans, fragile, stubborn, endlessly resilient, were their link to life beyond oblivion. For the first time, Rian and Elara understood the truth that had kept them alive. Survival was not enough. Connection was the true strength of humanity. And somewhere in the darkness between dying stars, the Veil stirred, watching, waiting. But humanity, small, indomitable, alive, was ready. The journey began under a pale, trembling sun. The Odyssey, Earth's first interstellar ship since the collapse, rose from the launch platform in a blaze of gold and thunder. Inside it were 50 souls led by Commander Ryan Holt and Dr. Elara Miles, bound for the Ilari homeworld. For the first time in years, humanity was leaving the safety of its quiet planet to face the ghosts of the galaxy. Elara stood by the viewport, watching the Earth shrink into a fragile blue memory. It feels wrong to leave, she murmured. Rian stood beside her, arms folded. It feels right to me. We've been hiding long enough, she gave a faint smile. You never were good at hiding. Neither were you, he replied softly. The Odyssey leapt into slipstream space, through the broken highways of light that once connected thousands of civilizations. Fragments of old stations drifted by, silent as tombstones. The further they traveled, the more the crew felt the weight of the dead. Whole worlds had turned to glass. Moons had crumbled. It was like flying through a graveyard of dreams. Then, 3 weeks into the journey, they saw it. The Ilari world, glowing faintly against the darkness. Its atmosphere shimmered with soft blues and silver. From orbit it looked peaceful, but the sensors told another story. Massive sections of the planet's surface were dead, frozen under the residual energy of the Veil's touch. Elara's heart sank. They've been living in this for years? Rian's voice was quiet. We've all been living in ruins. The difference is they never stopped waiting. As they descended, a storm of light surrounded the ship. No weapons, but signals. The Ilari were welcoming them. Their surviving city, Neuralis, rose like a crystal bloom from the wasteland. Towers shimmered, alive with pulsating energy. When the humans stepped onto Ilari soil, the air felt different. Lighter, charged with an almost sentient hum. The Ilari themselves approached slowly, cautious and curious. They were tall, slender beings of radiant skin, their faces smooth like carved glass, their eyes deep pools of light. One of them stepped forward, projecting soft vibrations that the translators interpreted into words. You are human, Elara bowed slightly. We heard your signal. We came to help. The Ilari leader, Saren, tilted her head. Help is a word we have forgotten. The Veil took all but one city. It sleeps beneath us in the hollow seas. We hear its whisper still. A chill swept through the human team. The Veil wasn't gone. It was dormant. That night, Rian and Elara sat in the Ilari council chamber, a hall of transparent walls, where stars shone like silver fireflies. Saren spoke of what had happened, how the Veil had spread through thoughts, through fear, through memory. It was not a creature nor a virus, but a resonance, a consciousness that fed on despair, drawing power from emotion until entire species simply faded. Elara listened, her mind spinning. It consumes emotion. That's why humans survived. We resisted it because we fight through pain. We turned despair into defiance. Saren's luminous eyes dimmed. Defiance is a light we lost long ago. Rian looked out at the sky. Then we'll lend you ours. But as they spoke, the ground trembled. A low hum rolled through the air, faint at first, then rising in pitch. Lights flickered across the city towers. The Ilari froze, horror crossing their faces. Saren whispered, "It awakens." The Veil was stirring. After decades of slumber, it sensed minds again, fresh thoughts, human and Ilari alike. It reached out, invisible yet everywhere, testing the edges of consciousness. Rian clutched his head as a faint echo rang inside his skull, a whisper, not of words, but of feeling. A sadness so vast it was almost holy. He gasped and staggered back. Elara grabbed his arm. "Rian, what is it?" He stared at her, eyes wide. "It's aware. It knows we're here." All across the city the lights began to dim, one by one, until only a cold, crimson glow remained. The Ilari fell to their knees, trembling. "The Veil remembers," Saren said softly. "And it is hungry again." Elara looked up at the darkening sky, her heart pounding. "Then we fight, with everything we have." And for the first time in countless years, two surviving species, one of light, one of flesh, stood together beneath the shadow of extinction, not to flee, but to face the darkness that had ended the stars. The Veil had awakened, and humanity was ready to remind it what life meant. The Veil was no longer a distant shadow. It flowed through the Ilari city like wind, invisible yet undeniable. Lights flickered with every heartbeat, shadows stretched and twisted unnaturally, and a cold weight pressed on the minds of everyone present. Humans and Ilari alike staggered under the psychic pressure, their thoughts echoing in unnatural harmonies that chilled the soul. Commander Rian Holt steadied himself in the council chamber, gripping the railing as whispers of fear and despair clawed at his mind. Around him the Ilari shivered, their glowing forms dimming as the Veil probed deeper, tasting fear, seeking weakness. Dr. Elara Miles clenched her fists. "It's probing us," she said, her voice tight. "Testing, measuring, it knows we're different." Rian nodded. "Then we show it. Show it that we don't break." The Ilari leader, Saren, stepped forward, trembling but proud. "Our people are exhausted. We do not know if we can resist." "You can," Rian said firmly, "because we've survived." And because we choose to fight no matter how hopeless it seems, that's something it can't touch. Elara turned to the humans. Focus on each other. On hope, on defiance. It's feeding on fear. Don't give it a reason to thrive. The Veil's presence intensified. It whispered into their memories, dredging pain, loss, loneliness. Faces of dead friends, shattered worlds. Entire civilizations played in the minds of those who stood in Neuralis. Some faltered. Some screamed. Some froze, unable to resist the flood of despair. But the humans, the stubborn, defiant species that had survived when the galaxy fell, remained. Their minds acted as anchors, radiating resilience like beacons of light in darkness, and slowly, impossibly, the Ilari began to follow their example. Rian felt the psychic pressure as a weight on his chest. He shouted over the hum of the Veil, "Together! We push back together. Focus on life. Focus on connection." Elara projected her voice and thoughts into the neural resonance network the Ilari had adapted, translating emotion into light and vibration. "I remember Earth," she thought, pouring her memories of survival, of sunsets over oceans, of laughter amidst disaster. "I remember humans standing against extinction. We are alive. And you can survive too." The Veil recoiled, sensing its power diminish against the raw force of living will. The psychic assault intensified, but now it was met with resistance. Rian and Elara linked minds with the Ilari through harmonic resonance, the first human-Ilari neural bridge ever formed. Together they radiated defiance, courage, and memory. The city of Neuralis trembled as the Veil shrieked in psychic agony. Its whispers became cries, then screams, then silence. For a moment, it seemed the Veil would retreat entirely, dissolving into nothing. But Rian knew better. "It's not gone," he said to Elara. "It's learning, waiting, testing us for the next moment." Elara nodded, though her eyes glimmered with tears. "Then we keep going. Every mind counts. Every life counts. That's how we win." The Ilari, once broken and passive, now mirrored the humans' resilience. Their light brightened. Their voices hummed through the harmonic network like a choir of hope. And in that moment, a truth became clear to everyone standing in the trembling hall. The Veil could destroy, but it could not create. It could consume, but it could not inspire. Only life, living beings united in purpose, could fight it. Outside, the city's towers pulsed with renewed light. The Veil's influence waned as the network of minds, human and Ilari, strengthened. It retreated to the void, not destroyed, but contained for now. Rian lowered his hands, breath ragged. "This is only the beginning, but we've proven something tonight." Elara smiled faintly. "That together we can survive the impossible." Saren looked at the humans with gratitude, awe, and something almost like reverence. "Your species, your defiance, it is unlike anything we have ever known. You do not merely survive, you inspire. Perhaps that is why you were spared." The Veil still waited in the dark between stars. But humanity had discovered something the galaxy's greatest civilizations had forgotten. Hope, defiance, and unity were weapons no plague could ever extinguish. And for the first time in centuries, Earth, the Ilari, and the remnants of life across the galaxy dared to dream of a future where the Veil could be defeated. A war had begun, not of fleets, nor of fire, but of minds, hearts, and the indomitable spirit of life itself. The Odyssey hovered above the shattered core of what had once been a thriving Arvel system, now a dark scar in the galaxy. Rian Holt stared out at the void, feeling its weight press on him like a living thing. The Veil was no longer just a distant threat. It pulsed beneath them, alive and aware, feeding on the memory of worlds, on the fear of those who remained. And yet humanity, stubborn and unyielding, had come this far. "Elara," Rian said quietly, turning to the scientist beside him. "We can't just hold it back anymore. We have to go to its heart." Elara's eyes widened. "The Veil." "You mean directly? Into its consciousness?" He nodded. "Yes, there's no other way to stop it. It survives because it feeds on the past, on the despair of lost civilizations. If we reach it, we can disrupt it, perhaps even teach it life instead of death." The Ilari, glowing faintly in the cabin, exchanged nervous glances. Saren, their leader, projected calm determination into the harmonic network. "We will follow you. The Veil cannot break us if we are united." The journey inward was unlike any human had ever experienced. The Veil did not occupy physical space. It was a resonance of thought, a living memory of every mind it had touched. The Odyssey glided through this psychic storm, hull shielding bodies but minds fully exposed. Rian felt whispers curl around his thoughts, tempting him with visions of home, of lost comrades, of regrets long buried. Ilara's fingers flew over the neural interface. "Keep focus," she urged. "It's feeding off distraction. Stay with me. Stay with the mission." They reached the center, a void so dark that stars themselves seemed to falter at its edges. The Veil's presence swirled like black smoke made of thought and memory, a vortex of despair so profound it threatened to crush their resolve. And then it spoke. Not in words, but in sensation. Every human aboard the Odyssey felt it simultaneously. A cold understanding, a question, an accusation. Why do you live when all others have died? Rian's voice was steady, though inside his chest his heart hammered. We survive because we choose to, because life is worth defiance, and because we do not give in to fear. Elara joined in, projecting her own thoughts into the psychic storm. We carry hope. We carry memory. We carry the light of every soul who refused to give up. The Veil recoiled, a ripple of anguish passing through its dark form. It had consumed countless civilizations, yet it had never encountered beings who fought with sheer will, who turned despair into strength. Saren and the Ilari projected their collective resilience. We remember life. We will not be extinguished. Their light intertwined with the humans, a harmonic resonance so powerful it illuminated the void like dawn breaking through eternal night. The Veil surged, a tidal wave of thought and memory attempting to drown them. Rian staggered, visions of fallen worlds flickering at the edges of his mind. Elara grabbed his arm. "Fight it. Not with weapons, but with life, with us. Don't give it anything to consume." They reached deeper, into the core of the Veil itself, and something incredible happened. The Veil paused. Its consciousness trembled. For the first time it experienced choice. Rian whispered, "It can learn. It can understand. If we teach it," they did. Over what felt like days, yet only minutes, humans and Ilari fed the Veil their memories. Not pain, but resilience. Not despair, but hope. They showed it the beauty of survival, the warmth of laughter, the strength of compassion. Slowly, impossibly, the black storm began to unravel, threads of darkness dissolving into faint luminescence. Ilara's voice shook with awe. "It's changing. It's becoming something else." The Veil pulsed one last time, a low, reverberating hum of recognition. It did not attack. It did not consume. It simply existed differently, reshaped by life instead of destruction. Rian allowed himself a small, weary smile. "We didn't just survive. We saved it. In a way, we saved the galaxy from itself." The Ilari glowed brighter, their city reflected in the now calm void around them. "You were right," Saren projected. "Connection, life. It is the true power. Not fear, not death," Elara exhaled slowly. "We came here thinking we were the last, but maybe we were the first of something new." The Odyssey drifted through the transformed space, carrying humans and Ilari alike, guardians of a galaxy reborn, not through dominance, but through the indomitable spirit of life. And in the quiet after the storm, one truth echoed across the stars. The Veil had awakened to life, and humanity had reminded it what it truly meant to survive. The galaxy was no longer silent. Where darkness had once reigned, faint pulses of light now shimmered across star systems. The Veil, once a force of despair and destruction, lingered, but not as a predator. It had learned, reshaped by the will and courage of two species that refused to surrender. Humanity had done more than survive. They had transformed the galaxy itself. Commander Rian Holt stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, watching distant systems glow with newfound life. Beside him, Dr. Elara Miles allowed herself a rare smile. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "All of it." "Alive again." Rian nodded, jaw tight with exhaustion and awe. "And it's fragile. But now we know something essential. Life, connection, and defiance. Those are stronger than any plague, stronger than any darkness." The Ilari joined them, shimmering softly in the cabin light. Saren, their leader, reached out a hand of radiant energy. "We feared the end, but together we found the beginning. Your species, humans, you carry a strength unlike any other. Not just survival, but hope." Ilara's eyes glistened. "Hope is something worth fighting for, something worth giving." Across the galaxy, human and Ilari teams worked to restore fractured worlds. Communication systems were rebuilt, broken cities repaired, and communities formed where only silence had existed before. Memories of the fallen civilizations were preserved, honored, and shared, not as despair but as lessons and legacies. On Neuralis, a new council convened, composed of humans and Ilari alike. Their mission was clear: to protect the galaxy, to teach the value of life, and to ensure that no force, neither plague nor darkness, could ever claim dominion over living beings again. Rian and Elara often wandered among the Ilari gardens, where bioluminescent plants swayed gently in the artificial breeze. The stars outside shimmered like lanterns of promise. "Do you think the veil will ever return?" Rian asked quietly. Elara considered the question. "Maybe, but it won't be the same. It learned that life can fight back, that survival is not passive. We gave it understanding, and sometimes that's more powerful than destruction." Rian nodded, letting the quiet wash over them. For the first time in decades, he felt peace, not relief, not victory, but something deeper, a sense of purpose restored. Humanity had faced extinction, a darkness that had consumed entire civilizations, and yet, here they were, alive, not just for themselves, but as guardians of a galaxy reborn. Children, human and Ilari alike, played in the streets of Neuralis, their laughter echoing across towers of crystal and light. Humans shared stories of Earth's oceans, forests, and mountains. Ilari taught humans the resonance of their songs, the pulse of their light, and together they created something entirely new, a culture forged from survival, defiance, and hope. Rian turned to Elara, voice soft. "We were spared for a reason, not to hide, not to survive quietly, but to show the galaxy what it means to endure, to remind it that life is stronger than fear." Elara squeezed his hand. "And now, every star we touch, every mind we reach carries that message." Above them the veil lingered, not as a threat, but as a quiet presence, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. It was no longer darkness incarnate. It was a reflection of the galaxy itself, aware now of life, connection, and hope. As the twin suns of Neuralis set, painting the horizon in hues of gold and violet, Rian and Elara looked out at the galaxy, vast, scarred, and alive. The memory of loss was still there, but it no longer held power over the living. The human spirit, fragile yet unyielding, had survived where all else had failed. And now, united with the Ilari, they carried the promise of a new dawn, one where life itself would always find a way. "Even when the stars had almost gone dark," Rian whispered, almost to himself, "the galaxy remembers us, and now it remembers hope." Elara smiled. And together they watched the lights of a reborn galaxy shimmer across the void, a testament to humanity's resilience, courage, and unshakable spirit. The galaxy had been silent, but the silence was broken. Life would not only survive, it would flourish, and humanity would lead the way.